But tell me what your childhood was like. What was it like?
You know, it's kind of funny. We're working on a huge project for the future, the online school of the future, if you will. Yeah. And we're really trying to figure out how to meet a need for the 7 leading educational streams: public schools, private schools, private Christian schools, home schools, KIPP schools, knowledge is power, programs in the inner cities, NAM schools, National Association of University schools. I mean, so all these very distinctive, unique educational streams make up K through 12 in the United States. Yeah. So as we try to get in that world, inevitably in the course of the conversation, I go, now, I'm the student that have all of us here pulling our hair out about. I'm the student because that had some learning challenges. And I think we now recognize that there's a significant number of our boys and girls and adolescents in this country that, for whatever reason, have some real challenging issues. Maybe personality, maybe emotional, maybe learning disabilities. For me, I was very dyslexic, never got diagnosed till I was in college. I'm going to state the obvious right now. I'll be Captain Obvious for a moment. But I was diagnosed as being very A.D.D, D.D, D.D, and they added about 12 Ds. Yeah. But none of that really came out until I was in college. And so in the process, I had a lot of bumpy roads, 6 broken homes as a kid growing up in Florida. So I know firsthand what happens when a young couple has alcohol in their home and when a young couple don't have any room for Jesus in their lives. So I just think of all the youth workers, whether they're at the Boys and Girls Clubs of America or volunteers at the YMCA or an after-school program or some of the campus ministries out there, First Priority and Fellowship of Christian Athletes and some of these great organizations, and then all the youth pastors. You put all that together, we see every day what happens when kids are brought up in a home where there's about 7 or 8 things going on that pretty much is going to determine the direction they go in. So I went through 4 broken homes by the 7th grade, 6 broken homes by the 10th grade. And the irony is my dad was an American success story. He was a war hero, served under Patton, captain of the Hell on Wheels Armored Tank Division, had a master's degree from the University of Florida, played football for a while for the University of Florida. So my dad, as I tell everybody, had everything a man could want. Great business, beautiful home, 2 lovely little boys. Hello. And but my dad, because of alcohol, drinking in the military, drinking as a teenager, walked away because when alcohol took charge of his life in our family. So we went from having everything money could buy to living in a very small home. We went from having we always had a nice house, but we never really had a home. Yeah. So I watched my mom devastated on the rebound, trying to hold everything together. She wasn't able to provide for my older brother and myself. And so eventually he ended up being raised by my grandparents, or her parents. So consequently to this day, we're not very close like most brothers would be. And then I had another brother I didn't know I had, whose my dad was married before he met my mom, and he had left Gary when Gary was 6, and he left me when I was 6. So, I always say, Dad loved you most. He stayed 2 months longer with you. So, my background was unfortunately not that rare because of the millions and millions of kids that have gone through broken homes. So along the way, all the different men being brought into a home, which I would just plead for all of our youth workers out there, all those that are trying to help families and help young people. But one of the greatest things we can do is help those moms who've had their life turned upside down, have been abandoned, have been mistreated, or maybe hadn't made some of the best choices in the world, but that's true for all of us, by the way. But all of a sudden, out of loneliness or desperation, she brings these men into her home. And what happens is those are not the biological children of the man in the home. And before you know it, I was sexually abused as a kid. I had my mom bring a guy in our home who brought a stepson from a failed other relationship into our home. and he was about 10 years older than me. And so I was sexually abused as a kid. I was physically abused as a kid. And, watched alcohol turn our family literally upside down. So I was a kid on the streets, and then it was obvious that I was having trouble at school reading and focusing. And I always got involved. I think I always tell everybody, at least I tell myself, I got involved with drugs because I wanted to be the kid that was too cool to care about school rather than he's stupid. He can't read. He's a dummy.
Yes.
He's got to ride the short bus with a helmet, that kind of a deal. So, of course, now I know there are a lot of very special needs kids who are in that situation that are very, very bright. But there are some challenges that they had. And I had some, not to the degree that some do, but enough to cause me to be out of step. So throughout my life now, fast forward all these years later, I realize that whatever we're doing, if it's something that's for the kingdom, if it's a spiritual objective, I gave my life to Jesus when I was 17, hair to my waist, track marks up and down my arms, and had been busted 4 times, dropped out of school twice. So when I was 17 as a methamphetamine addict, Jesus changed my life. I was a part of the Jesus movement, and the emphasis on the Word of God and big deal about Jesus. And we met 7 nights a week, so that was my AA group. That was my Alateen, Al-Anon, and that was my support group. People always say, "Did you go through a support group?" Yes, 7 nights a week, man. Where have you been? What are you doing? Does that honor Jesus? I mean, So the Jesus movement really, really helped transform my life. The good news, the gospel, and so once I laid the drugs down, got the booze down, it changed my life. People saw me trying. And even though I was told I'd never graduate high school because my grades were so bad and I dropped out several times in my police record, 2 teachers saw me trying, an English teacher and a coach, people I thought could have cared less about me, people that I thought because they were always on me didn't like me. Yeah. But little did I know they'd turn out to be 2 almost angels. It sounds, like made for a movie, but I mean, in my mind, they were like angels because they saw to it that as long as I had a good attitude and I was trying, they were to block and tackle to try to help me get out of school. Absolutely. Now, my friends all said it's because they don't want you back next year, and there may be a hint of truth to that, but we're not going to dwell on that. Yeah. But so fortunately for me, I got through, but all I brought to the party, Doug, was a big mouth. I was not ashamed to talk about Jesus. But I was part of that generation, If a girl was cute, we talked about it. If the movie was great, we talked about it. Absolutely. If there was a new band that was out, we wanted everyone to know. We'd wear their shirt. We'd get, buy the tickets. So for me, it wasn't that big a deal to talk about the one who changed my life. And I felt like I was doing my friends a favor to share with them. And I love what, Jesus told the Gadarene demoniac. I went back to my hometown to pastor some years later after I was doing a lot of much bigger, larger events across country. And a reporter said to me, "How does it feel to come back to your hometown," which was Fort Myers, Florida? "Don't you know that a prophet has no honor, in his own town?" And I said, "Well, first of all, if I came sashaying back into Fort Myers going, 'Hey, everybody, Jay's here. It's okay. I've got all the answers. Do what I tell you,' I promise you that would not be a very pretty picture. Yeah. There wouldn't be anybody give me 5 seconds, and I couldn't blame them. I didn't come back into town to go, 'Hey, I've got all the answers.' I'm the guy that was unclean. I was the guy that was on a self-destructive mission. I was the guy that was cutting himself and not in his right mind and going down the highway to hell. And Jesus came into my life. And I said, 'I'll follow you. I'll do whatever you want me to do.' And he said, 'Well, here's what I want you to do first. I want you to go tell your family and friends, those that you care the most about, with all the great things I've done for you.' So I said, 'Ma'am, I'm the unclean guy that came back to tell the people that are the most important people in the world to me.' Now, little did I know she'd record it almost verbatim. And, I mean, it turned out to be a great open door for me in my hometown. It even changed a lot of perception. Well, I remember him that way, and then all of a sudden so little did I know at the time. I wish I would have been smart enough to have calculated that, but it was just the Lord's grace, and that reporter was very gracious. But I'm just so I was the guy that wanted to go back to the locker room automatically, get up, go back to the beach, go to the point at Fort Myers Beach where everybody was surfing, come up here to Cocoa Beach where the only decent real surfing was. If you live on the Gulf Coast side of Florida, you had to come all the way up here. But Ron John's surf shop was the size of my office, right? Just my office, not even the suite. Just a small little shack with 3 boards or 4 boards out in front of it. So that's my background. A Florida kid, all the broken homes, and made all the mistakes you can make. Was turned down by 13 colleges. Was in and out of detention centers, some foster homes, lived with a lot of different places. So I felt like a piece of luggage most of my life. I always felt like I didn't fit in, I didn't belong. And I've been told all my life, you're not very smart, you're stupid, you're a troublemaker, you're never going to make it. But Jesus says, if I be for you, who could be against you? And it really is true, Doug. I don't want to sound like a preacher here, but I'm just telling you, old things somehow, some way, I guess because he's creator, but old things can pass away, and he can make all things new. So that's my background. So I've just been the guy with a big mouth. It's the only thing I bring to the dance, and I like talking about the one who I know makes a difference. And so that's what I've been trying to do almost 40 years now.